Welcome to the Profitable Farmer podcast, where we share stories and tips to help you run a better farming business and create your very own freedom farm. If you're looking to work smarter and not harder in your farm business, welcome. You're in the right place. G'day everyone, welcome to Profitable Farmer. I hope this finds you incredibly well. Sitting here in below zero conditions, frosty end to winter. I hope the season's treating you well. A disclaimer from me, my wife Jane has just bought guinea fowls. And so if you can hear them in the background, they're making quite the racket. I apologise. I think we might have to reconsider that decision. In the last two podcasts, we shared some interview or some webinars that we run with our Platinum Mastermind monthly on culture and team. And I hope you found those valuable and gave you an insight to, I guess, the depth we get to go to on some really important farm business leadership topics with our Platinum Mastermind and alumni members. So I hope you found that useful. On the back of that, I thought I'd round out that as a bit of a series with a conversation today on a question we often get asked. And I guess just to frame that up, Jane and I'm sure you are as well, sitting here, getting up early and sitting up late, just absolutely engrossed in the Olympic campaign and the Australians' achievements over in France. And incredible, isn't it, to see what Ariarne Titmus, Emma McKeon, Jess Cox, Kyle Chalmers, the Sevens teams, Harry Garside, our rowing teams, our athletics teams are all achieving. It's completely inspiring. You know, to think that these athletes dedicate their whole career and certainly 4+ years of intense training to arrive to a moment in time where they can perform at their best in a really discrete vocation, be it a 100-metre sprint or a 50-metre butterfly or whatever it is. It is quite incredible to see the level of expertise and the level of excellence that each of these amazing individuals pursue. Kind of got me thinking, you know, that there is no way, and I'm sure they do all acknowledge this, that there's no way they would achieve the level of greatness that they achieve without a really compelling team and support team. And I think for a moment that we should reflect on our careers and what we pursue and acknowledge for a moment that farm business ownership is one of the toughest assignments on the planet. You know, I think about the vagaries of the seasons, the vagaries of the markets, as we experienced late last year for a lot of us. The fact that a lot of us are growing commodities where we're price takers on both sides of our equation. So we're price takers to a large degree on the price we get for our commodities, but even on our inputs, interest rates, fertilizer prices and other things. There's only so much we can negotiate. So there's so much expertise and there is so much excellence in being low cost and really efficient producers and navigating the current economic climate that is just so different from what it was even 24 months ago. We've got a webinar early August with Greg and I free to this community that is all about surviving and thriving in the current economic and trading environment. I encourage you to find that link. I'll share it in the show notes and encourage you to get on and join us and be part of that webinar. But I think in our pursuit of excellence in the games that we play, often we think about the team that we need. And for want of a better metaphor, I'm going to use the rowing metaphor, the team we need in the boat to get it done. So the people we need in the paddocks, on the farm, helping us with bookkeeping to achieve a timely and effective on-farm outcome. I also reflect and linking back to those incredible Olympians, that to get a rowing boat to the Olympics and for a 4 or an 8 to shoot the lights out, certainly you need the right people in the boat, which is what our last 2 podcasts touched on. And plenty of others previously have talked about the importance of how to build out a high-performing on-farm team. But I think often we neglect the team that is beyond the farm, that is on board to help us achieve greatness in our careers and in our pursuit of excellent and best practice farm business leadership. So what I want to explore today is who is it that we need around us at leadership level to give us the best chance of success, like our elite athletes over in France are achieving. We often get asked the question, how do I best structure an advisory board? And so I want to touch on that question today. But I think perhaps beyond the team that we have on farm, I feel like there's 3 layers to the people we need around us to give us the best chance of the best outcome for our farms and our family. The first one are our advisors. And then there is a question as to when you are ready to bring advisors in to create an advisory board. So I want to touch on that. But beyond that team, and for the Olympic athlete, that's the coach, that's the dietitian, the nutritionalist, the physio, and the immediate team that Jess Cox or Ariane Titmus need around them to achieve greatness. But beyond that team, I feel like there is a team of peers, the Australian swim team or the Australian Olympic team that you need around you to be inspired to pursue different and better. And then beyond that team of peers, so we've got to be really thoughtful around who it is that we're surrounding ourselves beyond our advisory team. And in Farm Owners Academy, that's where I think our mastermind groups really kick in. So for those of you enjoying our Platinum Mastermind program, for me, that's your mastermind group. And the peers that you choose to surround yourself in who expect more from you perhaps than you do. And then there's that broader community. It's really important that we're really thoughtful around who we surround ourselves with beyond those 2 immediate groups, so that we're getting access to the best intelligence, the best information, and the best insights. And again, in our Platinum Mastermind and alumni groups, for me, that's the whole community. And again, to all of you enjoying being part of our Platinum Mastermind and alumni communities, thank you for all you do to make our community. For me, it feels a bit like the elite Olympic team. Really appreciate all that you do. But coming back to who we need around us and when am I ready to create an advisory board and how do I do that? I just want to focus this session today on that question because I think it's a cracker and we get asked it a lot. So I guess what I want to kick off with is 3 or 4 insights on what not to do or to warn caution against creating an advisory board. So the first one is don't assume that your advisory board needs to include your accountant, your agronomist, your livestock agent, or your bank manager. I think often when we go about considering if we're ready and who to put onto an advisory board, we often think about those advisors that we have that are right around us. But it doesn't have to necessarily be your current accountant. And I'll speak to more about that later. It might be that your accountant is really strong on tax compliance and really strong on helping you manage and minimize tax and get the structures around your farms really solid, but they can continue to be an advisor to your business and not necessarily be the expert in finance and on-farm analysis that you choose to bring in to be on your advisory board. Equally, it doesn't have to be your agronomist. It might be that they're a great technical contributor to your farm, or a livestock specialist might be a great contributor to your farm, but that might be the best place for them, they might not be the operational or technical expertise that you need when you put an advisory board together. The other thing I want to warn caution against is bringing family members into and onto the board just because they're family members. So I think it's really important at the appropriate time to bring the next generation into the business and onto the board, but it doesn't necessarily have to happen early. I think anyone who's going to arrive into your advisory board needs to have earned the right to be there. I think it's okay that you bring at the appropriate time the next generation in. They might sit in on board meetings and observe for a while until they've genuinely earned the right to sit at the table. Who we choose to bring onto our advisory team and advisory board is just so important. I think, and we talk about this in prior podcasts, it's so important to have our organizational chart right in our business and set up for our teams with job descriptions really clear. It's also really important to have career paths mapped out for all employees that work with us, family or non-family. And I use the example about an accounting firm that brings someone into their business, whether they're family or non-family, it should be the same, no special favors. And so for that accounting firm, someone might start in the business as a graduate and then they become a junior analyst and then an analyst. Then they might, when they've ticked the boxes, become a junior accountant. Then they'll become an accountant and then they'll become a team leader of accountants. Then they might be invited to become a junior director. And at some point, they might be invited to be a director. And at that point in time, they might earn the right to be on the board of advisors to that accounting firm. I think it's really important that on our farms and for our next generation coming through, that they've got a similar career path where they might go from being junior farmhand to senior farmhand to junior manager to enterprise manager to farm manager, and then perhaps after that be invited in to observe the board meetings and sit on the board. I think just because someone's family doesn't necessarily earn them the right to be part of your key advisory team or to sit on your advisory board necessarily from the outset. I hope that makes sense. And I guess what I see some people do is have somewhat unreasonable expectations of the board members that they invite to help them challenge their strategy and set down the direction and the growth of their business. And I want to explain that this way, that if you are to set up an advisory board, you're not enrolling those experts to do the work for you. And so it's really important that you do the pre-work as the business owner and that you set down the foundations that need to be in place before you bring in advisors or to set up an advisory board, and then that you have very reasonable expectations of that advisory board's level of involvement with you. And so what we mean by that is that it's not the advisory board's job to write your strategic plan. It's not their job to analyze the performance of your farm. It's not their job to prepare your budgets or compare your performance in any period against your budget. And the list goes on. And so before you set up an advisory board, I think it's really important that as business owners, we take the time to set the foundations that need to be in place in the business. And so the key things I think we need, and you might like to write these down. Firstly, we need to write the strategic plan. And it needs to be our best attempt at setting down the core values, the rules, the standards, the focus, and the goals and plans for how we're going to move this business forward. Now, at Farm Owners Academy, we have a 3-page strategic plan called our Clarity Action Plan. that nails those key components for all of our members. And so just to list those out again, a good strategic plan should set down the values, the rules, the standards, the focus, so the business model focus, the goals, and the plans for the business. And our Clarity Action Plan achieves that in less than 3 pages, normally 2 pages, for our farm business families moving through our programs. If you can make it that concise, then you can start overlaying real accountability quarter on quarter to around the pursuit of the goals that are within that plan. The second point is it's up to you as the business owner to analyze the performance of your business. And we do that through our benchmarking for our Platinum Mastermind and alumni members that helps them and us really understand the performance at a whole farm level, at an enterprise level, on a per hectare, per tonne, per DSE basis. But it's really important as a business owner, before you bring in an advisory board, that you are doing the heavy lifting around farm performance analysis, and you don't expect that from your board, or you expect your board to do that for you. The next thing is it's on you as the owner to set down a meaningful and robust budget that is your best attempt at the 1 and 3 year projection for the direction that your business will move in and that your business model will achieve for you. And then again, it's on you as the business owner to compare your performance against that budget, and we recommend quarterly, and feed that information through to your advisory board so that they're empowered to help you each year and within each year. The next thing, as the business owner, it is still on you to do the due diligence and the analysis on growth and expansion or change decisions. What I will say is that you can bring in individuals on your board to support that process, perhaps between board meetings, but it's important not to arrive to those board meetings expecting that your board will do that for you. It's also really important to have a very clear operational plan. So paddock plan set down with your agronomist or your livestock and pasture specialist. There's a clear operational plan for the farm 1 year and perhaps out 3 and 5 years, just depending on the rotation that you run. But it's really important to have that operational plan and the timeliness around it set down in a really clear report. And often our agronomists, for example, can be really good contributors to the setting down of that strategic plan or that operational plan. Then in addition to that, it is on us to set down the organisational chart for our team that will support and underpin the business with really clear roles and career paths defined. Again, I think that is for us to do as the owners before we engage with and bring in an advisory board. And lastly, to bring all that into life and to get real alignment around that plan is your operating or your communication rhythm. So again, we recommend weekly meetings with the key decision makers in your business. You might have some monthly meetings, but certainly a quarterly planning meeting and an in-depth, ideally 2-day annual planning meeting that forms the communication rhythm that governs how you run your on-farm team. And we've got agendas, we've got formats for those, which we're willing to share if you reach out to us to support you in that. But I'll just read those out again. It's on you as the business owner, before you set up an advisory board, I think, to have your strategic plan, your benchmarks, your budgets, your analysis, your operational plan, your team structure, your organisational chart, and your communication rhythm set up and functioning strongly so that when you do bring an advisory board on, that you've got the momentum and the alignment to really make the most of having an advisory board in place for you. I just want to make the point again that it's not your advisory board's job to do those things for you. It's the job of the advisory board to critique those things, to challenge you and question all parts of those things, and then to help you refine and improve and grow. So the job of the advisory board is to test your strategy and then contribute to the improvement of the business direction that you take into the future. But again, it's not their job to do the heavy lifting around those key elements for you. Once you've got those foundations in place, then it's really important to respect the time of the advisors that you bring in to your business and to have reasonable expectations of them. And I guess what we recommend, and coming back to that communication rhythm, I wouldn't have your advisory board involved in all of your planning annually. What I would recommend is that you take the key decision makers in your business away, and we recommend 2 days off farm annually to review and then refine and optimize that strategic plan. And then it's with you as the on-farm team, the key decision makers in the business, to have quarterly meetings that review what you have achieved in the last quarter and what you're away to achieve next quarter in the pursuit of that strategic plan. But once you've got that communication rhythm in place with your on-farm team, then the opportunity does exist to have a follow-up meeting where you test the strategic plan and you test the budget and you test the benchmarking report outcomes with key advisors to your business in a group format where together they can focus with you on testing the strength of your strategic plan, the strength of your business model, and the strength of your budget and your roadmap for moving forward. So it's really important when you set up an advisory board that they're provided that information ahead of time and that there's a clear agenda sent ahead of time, allowing those board members to be prepared and to arrive to a board meeting equipped with what they need to help you critique those key elements of your strategic plan, your benchmarks, and your budget. In terms of frequency, I recommend twice a year. So once you've done your annual planning, I think it's really powerful on the back of that you present the key documents from your strategic planning and your budgeting to your board ahead of time. And then you convene your board to stress test that before you launch into your new season. And then it might be at the end of your second quarterly planning meeting, mid-season, that you convene your board again, where you report in on your performance against budget, your performance against your strategic plan, and then you get their input to how you might correct and adjust mid-season in pursuit of the key aspects of your plan. So I think twice a year is compelling. Once a year might be enough. But the third key element of what makes having an advisory board really powerful is the accountability that it brings. In business, there is ultimately no one holding us accountable. Our bank a little bit and occasionally, but ultimately there is no one holding us accountable. And so in our Platinum Mastermind and alumni, that's where so many people are getting real value, because they have a business coach and a mastermind group holding them accountable to their strategic plan on a monthly basis or more frequently, which really can bring results. And for me, I think that's absolutely proven. But then having an advisory board that you've got to report to at least once, perhaps twice annually, amplifies that accountability again. It takes away that opportunity to turn up to those meetings and come up with excuses as to why things haven't been done. And their job is to hold you accountable to implementing each year and each quarter on the things that you said you were going to do. Now, in terms of who to bring into your advisory board, I think it's really important that you have someone with a really strong financial skill set. And that's an analytic skill set and a financial skill set that can look at a budget and look at your due diligence and challenge you on the assumptions, the methods that you use to analyze or to set down your budgets and to analyze growth decisions. And as I mentioned at the start, that person with really strong financial acumen and a strong analytic skill set doesn't necessarily have to be your accountant. In addition to that, I think it's really important to have someone on your board, and they might even be from outside of our industry, that have got a really strong strategic and business skill set. Again, doesn't have to be your farm consultant or your accountant. It might be someone from your network who you completely respect and trust for their track record and their success in business, their business acumen, and their strength in strategic planning and strategic development. I think it can be really powerful too to have a role model or a superstar from our industry who you respect and admire, who has walked the path ahead of you. So if you've got aspirations to grow your business threefold in your lifetime, who in your community do you most respect and admire, who has already achieved that in their career? And what is the opportunity to bring them in to your board to help you achieve the sort of growth and the sort of success that they've achieved in their lifetime? And then, depending on the size of your team, you might choose to have someone on your board who has an HR, a human resource, or a people management skill set. And you might also choose to have someone on your board who's got a really strong operational or technical skill set. So that might be your agronomist, it might be a livestock specialist, it might be a dairy specialist, just depending. But if you haven't got that skill set in the other people that I've just mentioned, it might be important to bring someone like that in, either as an advisor to the board or on the board proper. The other opportunity that I wanted to mention here is, as the owner of the business, it can be really compelling for you not to be the chairman. So it might be that you invite one of those other people. So a good board size can be 3 plus you, can be 4, maybe 5 for a big business. But I think it can be really compelling to invite one of those other people in to be the chairman to the board meetings or the chairperson to your board meetings. And that allows you to sit back and present, as the CEO should, to their board, present the strategic plan, present the benchmarks, present the budgets, but participate in the conversation rather than feeling pressure to lead it and to chair it. So having someone else chair your meetings can be a really compelling way to structure your advisory board. The other element to that I wanted to mention is that even though you're having someone else chair the meeting, it's important that you set the agenda for the meeting and that you ask that chairperson to respect and honour the agenda that you want to have that lines up with the agenda for your annual planning meetings and your quarterly meetings. So I think having consistency in the agendas of all of these important meetings is important. Having someone else chair the meetings is valuable, but you can shape the agenda and the format for those meetings and ask your chairperson to respect and honour that and ensure that the meeting sticks to that format. The key other point that I wanted to make is that they should be paid roles. I think if we want people invested in helping you set down and improve the strategic plan, the benchmarks, the budgets, the business models, the team and the direction of your business, then it's really important that they're not volunteer contributors to your business, that each of their roles are paid roles so that they're motivated to lean in and really contribute in the meetings and also in between. The benefit then of having paid people in your advisory meetings is that they're aligned to your direction, they're committed to your direction, and then they're available as mentors to you and advisors to you in between those meetings. So that as you draft your budget, if you've got questions and you need a sounding board, you've got access to them. As you're setting down your operational plan, you've got access to them. As you're crafting your strategic plan, you've got access to those people for input and questions outside of those key meetings. The other key point that I wanted to make, and this is one of my final points on this, is careful overcomplicating it. So advisory boards should speed you up, not slow you down. And so it's important to keep the way you shape these meetings and the expectations and the contribution of those advisors, keep it nimble and keep it simple, and don't overcomplicate it. Be really clear on what decisions get made outside of these meetings. A lot of the operational, administrative, financial and tactical decisions in the business should be made outside of these meetings. And only the key major growth decisions should be made within these meetings. And I actually think the business owners should make those decisions in principle first, and then bring those decisions to the board to validate and approve, rather than throwing decisions into the board meetings so that you create a committee style dynamic to the making of those decisions. I think they're there to validate or challenge your decisions already made rather than make them for you. Another key point is that someone might be on your advisory board for 3 years or 5 years, but it's important as your business grows to set an agreed tenure for their role or time for their tenure with you, and that be reviewed, I think, every 2 or 3 or 5 years, and that you reserve the right and the opportunity to bring in fresh skills and fresh people to help you look at your business and look at your key documents and your key direction in a different way. And so I want to thank those of you who have asked that question, when and how and who do we bring into an advisory board, and are we ready to establish an advisory board? I hope you found that a reasonable response. I think it's a great question. I think there's quite a bit of work to do as business owners first to set down those key components and key disciplines in our business before we set up that advisory board. And I think it's really important that we retain responsibility for the preparation of those key documents, and that we provide those to our board rather than expect our board to do them, so that the real ownership of the direction of the business stays with us as the owners. And again, looping back, you think about the elite performance achieved by our Olympians and just how careful they are about who they bring in to their inner circle and their key advisory teams. Equally, that's important for us. So my final point on this is we've got to feel values aligned with the people that we invite onto our board and into our inner circle to help us move our businesses forward. And so it's really important to spend time with them, to interview them thoughtfully, to get to know them over time before you invite them onto your board, so that you're giving yourself the best chance of being very confident that you are bringing people onto your board with whom you feel aligned with from a values perspective. I hope that's been of value. I hope it's complemented our previous 2 podcasts, growth call recordings from our Platinum Mastermind on important team and culture topics. Encourage you to listen to those again. And a reminder as well that early August, we've got a free webinar to this community on how to thrive in the current economic trading environment that we're experiencing now. So I encourage you to register for that. We look forward to seeing you online next week for that. And please reach out with any other questions you might have about when and how to structure an advisory board for your farm business. Take care, everyone. I hope this finds you well and look forward to connecting with you in coming weeks. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Profitable Farmer podcast by Farm Owners Academy. If you're new to this show, be sure to follow us. If you've been a long-time listener, let your friends know about us or come continue the conversation in the Profitable Farmer Facebook group. All the best as you grow your business and create your freedom farm. Until next time, keep being incredible.